Well, hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. This is our NFL wrap-up show for Week 18. Guess what, guys? The season's over. We're done. We don't even have to talk about it. It's over, and this will be the last show that we do for the regular season. But no, there are playoff implications. There are certainly seedings that take place. There's who's going to have the number one pick in the draft. We'll talk about all of that and much more. Joey Clinkscales, our former general manager, player scout, developmental, you name it, he's had everything, and former player as well with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And by the way, Pittsburgh and Baltimore, there's about 6 minutes left to go in that ball game. Ravens ahead 17-13. We're going to talk about it. Our other guest here with us is Brian LeBel, NFL, NCAA analyst. Welcome, both of you. Happy New Year. Week 18. Joey, we'll start with you. I was teasing saying it's done, but it is done. But there's a few things that happened today that obviously are very important. There's a few games that, aside from an NFL record, which we'll talk about in the Cleveland game, there were some things that really just 3 games that really had no significance at all. But Joey, at the end of the season, we got through it. How about that? Good for us, right?
We got through it. It was a fantastic season for the most part. The NFL is always quite entertaining, especially from week 12 through the end of the season, because that's kind of the fourth quarter of the season, and teams are you pretty much know what you have at that point. Teams have their legs, and you're getting down to the wire, and games mean a lot more. Now we say that, but there are a lot of teams that were on the bubble, like in the NFC South, where all those teams were bunched up together. Had somebody done something differently early in the season, they wouldn't be in that position, and you wouldn't have people being fired late night after Sunday night games.
I wonder if you're talking about Atlanta Falcon fans. I wonder, Joey, what you're referring to there. But I like the way it was a good season. There's a lot of things to celebrate. And Brian, of course, with the winners come the accolades and the spoils. But there were some teams that had some injury issues. There were some cap issues, of course. There's some coaching issues. But all in all, what was your assessment? Going into Week 17, there were 2 or 3 important divisional games. Obviously, one of them is the last game of the season, the way that it worked out between Baltimore and Pittsburgh. And that game, again, going on right now as we speak. But it's a winner-take-all for that. A couple other games going right down to the wire.
Not necessarily things that surprised me, but I will say the low-scoring aspect of what a lot of these games have been, like the slug it out. Yeah, obviously, there's been some bad weather, but San Francisco didn't find the end zone last night. They had a huge game for them, right? That was one of the biggest games they played in a while. The Carolina-Tampa game, I know weather was bad, but that was a sloppy one. The one that's going on right now, it's a classic AFC North, Steelers-Ravens. I don't know if any of the other teams that division are ever going to take part in this sort of rivalry or this sort of ordeal late in the year, but it's very magnified, right? All these teams are already basically playing playoff football, and you can tell there's a different atmosphere, there's a different mindset, and it's a lot of fun. Obviously, when you have implications late in the year, so especially Week 18, because a lot of times when the divisions are all settled and the dust is settled and everything, it's just not a lot to play for. Most of the league didn't have a lot to play for today. You had some streaks, you had some contract incentives and whatnot, but there was still some competitive football. Obviously, there's still some going on right now, but it's always good when you get good games. It's always good when there's something on the line, when there's stakes, obviously, regardless of what week.
And Joey, one thing I want to bring up to you, if you don't mind, real quick, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh right now, they are playing Baltimore. It's in the fourth quarter. There's 6 minutes left to go. 17-13. Pittsburgh has the ball on the Baltimore 2. With 3:53 left to go as we're filming right now. But Joey, as a former player, as a Steeler, a guy that played for the Steel City and wore the black and the gold, it's a different kind of football in December and January.
Absolutely.
And the team has been so consistently good for decades. There are some folks that say, I wish we would just lose and get a better draft pick. We haven't picked in the top 10 since I was born. But there are other folks that go, you know what, we're a good team, and so we're just going to take our lumps in terms of the draft and our positioning in that, because we're always a good team, and that I'd rather have that than anything else. But as a former Steeler, going into the last game of the season and knowing for years and decades and for a century almost, it seems, that the Steelers have been important since 1972. What is your assessment of the organization and the success that they've had over the years?
Well, losing is not really in the Steelers' DNA, in their culture. They do a lot of things to, starting with the ownership. Now, we talk about ownership in different leagues and different teams in the NFL. Well, the Steelers' ownership is one of the most proud, the most faithful, the most loyal ownership there is in the National Football League. So the direction from the Steelers come from ownership down. When I was there, it was the father, the old man with you always saw with the cigar in his mouth.
Art Rooney, yep.
And then one of his sons took over, and now one of his sons took over. So it's a family-run business at the top. But again, in 60 years, they've had 3 head coaches. That tells you the loyalty they've had. And I know people clamor about, we're always in the middle of the pack where we should lose games. Well, they're never going to tank games. They're never going to lose games. That's just not who they are. That's just not how the city, the old Pittsburgh Steel City is built. Those teams took the culture of the city. I mean, it was a working class town when the old steel mills were there. People fight and scrap for everything. And that's how the Steelers play, and that's how they will always play. So, while the younger generation are clamoring for draft picks, the old guard, we're going to play this thing out to the last whistle.
And Brian, as in terms of what Joey was saying, the tradition there, you're not as young. You're younger than us both. And I remember I was about 10 years old when Gorilla's Gorillas, Franco's Italian Army, Lambert's Lunatics, they first got started. Franco's Italian Army was just coming into play, and the stadium was dirty, and the turf was dirty, and the players on artificial turf had dirty uniforms, and it was new and it was fresh, and the place was jumping up and down. Since then, of course, the Steel City's love and admiration for the team is different. For a younger guy, you've grown up going, the Steelers are always there. They're always there. Yeah. And they used to be the worst team in the league. Johnny Unitas was a Steeler. Joey, I know you know that, but for fans there, Johnny Unitas, before he became Mr. Football with the Colts, was a Pittsburgh Steeler, and he couldn't make it happen either. So it was just a terrible place to play until, they never made the playoffs until Franco got there. But they had built with Chuck Noll a solid lineup, and I won't go into history. But for a younger guy that goes, they've always been good, right? That's just a part of who they are and what they've been ever since you were born 30 years ago.
Man, even early 2000s when they kind of had to sub in Tommy Maddox or Charlie Batch or whoever it was, they still competed. They still played well each and every week. Even if they weren't winning a ton of games, they were still in every game, right? The game, they were in it late in the season. They were in it in the fourth quarter. They compete their tails off. So like Joey said, they're not going to tank because that's not their DNA. That's not their nature. That's what they do. They compete. Now, I will say this, on the other side, if you talk about Baltimore has kind of adapted a lot of that, right? They want to kind of mimic what Pittsburgh does. They're not nearly as storied. Obviously, they haven't been around nearly as long, but they're in that same boat, with Flacco and with, even go back to, what was it, Dilfer in 2000 when they won? Lamar Jackson. I mean, this team still can. I mean, Tyler Huntley's out there winning them games, when they need to, right? Lamar goes out, they can still find a way. Hey, we can run the ball, we can play defense, we can do everything that Pittsburgh does. I think that's why these teams are here at the end of the year, every single season. I think that's why these games are so close and so good. It's because they mimic each other very, very well. It's kind of complimentary, right? The Ravens are like, hey, we love what you do. We hate you guys, but obviously we're going to try to steal the winning formula, the blueprint. We're going to play in the cold. We're going to run the ball, and we're going to play defense. And it works well, especially in the AFC North. It's almost tradition at this point, right? That's just what you do. If you play AFC North football, you better be able to run the ball, and you better be able to play defense.
Well, this game, 3 minutes left to go. It's 2017. Pittsburgh has just scored. They are leading right now. They are at home, and winner take all. They win the NFC North Division Championship and automatic berth into the playoffs for the winner. The loser goes home, and they get to play golf. We'll talk a little bit more about this game in particular a little bit later on in the show. But let's first talk to some of the more important games that took place in terms of earlier in the week. Saturday, we got to see a really good football game. You said it was sloppy, Brian, but let's talk first and foremost. Buccaneers win, but they didn't win, did they? They ended up winning the game, but they needed Atlanta's help and support in order to make some things happen. At least Carolina did. And who would have thunk that with a three-way tie in the division, how Atlanta. So explain a little bit about what the tiebreaker was. Tampa Bay, the Buccaneers, they win the ball game, but they end up not winning. Carolina is very thankful that the Falcons end up winning today. Why would that be?
So the three-way tie favors Carolina because Carolina, I think they were all 1-1 against each other, and then the Panthers beat the Falcons twice. So that's what it came down to. Realistically, it's funny how the numbers work. It's funny how the division works. It's been a while since I think I've seen a division where everybody finishes with the exact same record or within a game of each other, whatever it is. So it was interesting to see. And funny enough, the Falcons decided it. Obviously, it was the 1 o'clock Eastern time game today, but they were eliminated mathematically a month ago, right? They had nothing to play for. They'd won 4 straight games, beaten a couple of good teams too. The way they went out was, kind of impressive, but it's funny how it works. Carolina loses the game and they still find a way to squeak into the playoffs because those pesky tiebreakers, the way it works, especially those divisional games.
Joey, is that going to be a hindrance for them? We'll talk about the preview of the wild card weekend tomorrow or maybe on Tuesday. But before we do that, let's congratulate Carolina, but also you backed into the division. Tell me what, from a psychological standpoint, from an upper front office type of respect, what's that? You're in, but you didn't get in the way you really wanted to get in.
Well, if I heard your question correctly, you were breaking up a little bit. I think the way the Panthers are going into the playoffs is that they kind of backed their way in. Obviously, they lost their last game, and they're going into the playoffs. And I believe they have the Rams coming to town, a team that actually they beat because they're the number 4 seed, and the Rams are, I think, the number 5 seed. So they actually have a team that they've already played coming to town. Now, the Rams have a lot of firepower, and the Buccaneers, again, they kind of back, not the Buccaneers, I'm sorry, the Panthers kind of back their way in, and the quarterback has played up and down, and he actually, in the rain versus Tampa Bay, he actually played pretty good. I mean, he had 1 interception, and they ended up losing the game. But the quarterback actually played pretty consistently during that game, especially for a guy of his stature. And I can go into particulars about quarterback build, yada, 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 hand size, all that thing with a wet ball. I mean, we can talk about that mainly when we get to talking about draft players, especially the quarterback position. But this team has something. I mean, usually they can run the ball. They didn't run the ball particularly well in the last game, but it'll be an interesting game. I would expect the team from California to win this game because they have a lot more to play for. But it'll be interesting. I think if the Carolina Panthers, you had told the Carolina Panthers that coming into this season you would win the division and go to the playoffs, they would have taken that. No matter what else has happened, they would take that hands down.
Yeah. From where they've been the last couple of years. And Brian, you mentioned the running game, Joey, but Brian, Hubbard and Dowdle together rushed for 20 yards. They had 19 yards total in rushing. That's pathetic for a team that's going to make it into the playoffs. But 266 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's just enough to be able to win. Even though you lost the game, to win to get you in the playoffs. They got to work on some things, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a divisional game, right? These they go either way, right? They're always close, regardless of one team's really good or really bad. It goes back and forth. But the run game was their bread and butter, and like Joey said, Bryce Young played a pretty good game. Because he was, especially in the fourth quarter when he had to keep dropping back, he had to keep making plays because they couldn't run the ball for the majority of that game. And they almost abandoned it just the entire fourth quarter. They're playing from behind, obviously, but it's not working, so you have to do something else. They tried some of the quick hitters, the screen game, stuff like that, but. Kudos to Bryce. He played a pretty clean game. He's been getting ragged all season, right? We've ragged on him since he's been there. He got benched obviously last year. He's got a history of, does the organization believe in him? Do they not? Are they going to start him? And here we go, a full year, and they're in the playoffs. Regardless if, obviously they didn't get in the cleanest way, but I mean, you could argue Tampa Bay was the worst team in football the last 2 or 3 months. Just record-wise, I think they went 2-7, 2-8 down the stretch. I mean, not a lot of clean football for them. So, to get in the playoffs, regardless, it's something that you strive for. It's the first step, and everything's clean, right? It's a clean slate. You got a Rams team. It's very, very good, yes, but they beat him a couple weeks ago, and Bryce Young played one of his best games, maybe of his career. He's very, very precise, very consistent. Completion percentage was good. It's a very good defense, but it's one they've seen before, and they get to host them, right? It's a home game for them, so anything could happen. So kudos to the Panthers for getting there. I think everybody thought this was the Bucs division to win, and they're able to sneak in. And although they didn't win the game, they won the one earlier, and they are able to sneak in as division champs because of that.
Yeah, and Joey, you win the game, but you lose the war, so to speak. Where do you go in Tampa? Because we've spoken about them over the last couple of weeks, how earlier in the season they were winning those close games. They're losing the close ones. This is one they win, but with the tiebreaker, they don't end up making it. Where do you go from Tampa? What do they do from here? You're going to heal up. You're going to get to rest a little bit. And are they the favorite right now to win the division next year with a healthy lineup, and you bring everybody back a year later with more experience?
Well, I don't know. They have a lot to do from the standpoint of they have to figure some things out. I think the defense guys on the defense, like David, the linebacker, and some more players are getting longer in the tooth. So they have to figure those personnel decisions out. They have to do a deep dive into why the second half of the season they kind of went downhill. Okay, yep. And some of that was due to injury to Baker, to the receiving core. They had some running back injuries, so all those things. Now, toward the end of the season, the last 2 or 3 games, all those players were back. But it did affect them, and I think Baker still at the end of the season, he was even yesterday he was playing banged up and hurt. So I think you have to take all that into account when you're evaluating the team and where we go from here. But to say, will they be the favorite? I'm not sure, because despite what New Orleans did yesterday with a very young team and not a lot of playmakers, they won like 5 of their last 6 games. So I think New Orleans will go into the offseason with a smile on their face, because they're going to feel like they're ahead of schedule. The Panthers are ahead of schedule, winning the division. So this division will be interesting depending on what Atlanta do, because they're going to have a whole new regime there. I don't think Tampa Bay is going to make a ton of changes, but I do think they'll make some in some areas. But so it'll be interesting. So I'm not sure Tampa Bay will walk into the 2026 season as the favorite to win the NFC South.
Yeah, well, congratulations to Carolina. Even though they lost the game, they end up earning a tie-breaking win and back into the playoffs as the NFC South division champion. And they will get to play next week. As we mentioned, the Los Angeles Rams will be heading to Carolina for wild card weekend. Let's look at the other big game from Saturday. Obviously, this one a little bit better. But Brian, you mentioned a little while ago, San Francisco couldn't score offensively after really dominating and really getting their wheels underneath them for the last couple of weeks. They end up losing 13-3 as the final. Much closer defensive battle than what I thought it was be. What say you in terms of just 55 yards on the ground for the 49ers? They just struggled and didn't look like they were able to get their feet under it.
Yeah, I'll say this first. The Steelers just scored, so they took the lead under a minute. So that game's going back and forth again. But this was, I think Seattle was flexing their muscles defensively. Houston's kind of been the belle of the ball, just because if you look at them offensively, and they kind of flew under the radar, they've won a bunch of games in a row, and they got the best defense overall in the league. But Seattle's top to bottom, there's not a single weakness on this defense. And Trent Williams was out, Ricky Pearsall was out. That's obviously you're not going to be at your best when you're San Francisco, but we've talked about it on the show that they've been missing guys all year. Fred Warner's been gone, Bosa's been gone, Purdy's missed time, everyone's missed time, right? So this was sort of it wasn't uncharted territory for San Francisco. It's just Seattle was just that much better. They dominated from start to finish. And really, they should have scored again. They had first and goal in the 2, and for some reason, they couldn't punch it in. This game should have been 16 or 20-3. They dominated from the gun, and it's just Seattle did everything right. They're riding a ton of momentum coming to the playoffs. I know they got the first round bye, which is awesome for them. They get to rest up, but it's almost like they don't want it. I almost wouldn't want to take a week off with how they're playing right now, especially defensively. And Joey and I have said it. Joey more so than me said defense travels, right? And they ran the ball. They've been able to run the ball pretty consistently the last month or so, and they've taken off. It's kind of a different dimension. Darnold's turnovers are gone down. They don't have to throw the ball as much, and it's added a new dynamic to this offense. And it's complementary football. We'll play defense, we'll run the ball, and we'll shorten the game. And that's exactly what they did. That's why the 49ers only had 3 points. It was a formula for success, and it's just been the Seattle team. Not a lot of people are talking about them. I mean, maybe some, but I don't think enough, because this team is this team is pretty stinking good, and the NFC runs through Seattle now. So I would not at all be surprised at the minimum to see these guys playing the NFC title game.
Joey, Brian brings up the defense, 120 yards in the air with Brock Purdy. They rushed for 53 yards. They got 3 sacks. Defense really, in my opinion, they won the game. They just made it pretty easy for 13 points. I think San Francisco's, we couldn't score 14 with this offense. We may want to sue for lack of support here, but give credit where it's due. Sam Darnold played well enough to win 180 yards on the ground for the Seahawks. They really dominated on the front line. So I think that's where you need to, especially when the playoffs are on the line and the top seed. They played well. They played well on the road. They're 8-1 on the road this season.
Hey, the same thing we've been talking about all year. Defense and run game, especially playoff football, will win you a lot of games. And again, the Seahawks defense really got after Brock Purdy in this game. And again, offensively, Sam Darnold didn't have to do much. He was really efficient. I think he was like 20 for 26, something like that. And then, they were able to rush for 180 yards. So when you can control the clock by running the ball and have 2 backs that are really efficient running the ball, have no turnovers, no interceptions in the game, and play the kind of defense that Seattle has, then guess what? You have a chance to win a lot of football games. And I know the 49ers had some guys that were injured. They're starting left tackle, a couple receivers. So the tight end. So you had a couple things not in your favor, but they had a ton to play for. They've been playing like that all year. And had they won that game, they wouldn't have to leave until the start of the 2026 season, because every game they played from that point on would have been a home game. Now every game goes through Seattle, and it's going to be tough for anybody to go to Seattle and beat that team, especially since now that team, I believe, will have a bye.
Talk about the home field advantage with the 12th man and the flag raising and all that. It's just a loud, very in it, savvy crowd. They know their team. They know the visitors. They make a heck of a lot of noise, and they have for years. Remember the Wave back in the 70s started in Seattle. What is it about that?
Well, the way the stadium is built, I mean, the noise stays in the stadium. Now, it's an open-air stadium, but the way the stadium is designed, it is designed to be really loud. And then that 12th man there, that's a real thing. They have spent millions and millions of dollars to get that place the way they want to, and the fans have appreciated. They show up, win, lose, or draw. That's really a hard place to go into and win a football game. So Seattle has an enormous home field advantage and then the weather. I mean, it may be nice for a minute, and 2 hours later, it's raining cats and dogs. So and they're used to that. The damp, cold air that comes to Seattle this time of year. They have a real home field advantage. It's almost like going to Green Bay or Chicago, and those teams playing in the wind and the snow, where they have an advantage. So Seattle has the same type of advantage.
Yeah, I remember when I was there, the sun disappeared on October 15th. You didn't see it again until February, March, and that was just for a couple of minutes. Brian, the home field advantage, obviously Seattle earned it. Sam Darnold comes from Minnesota. He won just about the same amount of games last year with the Vikings. He had a playoff game that he blundered. He struggled a little bit, and they ran him out of town. Do they love him in Seattle right now, or is it still a wait and see? Win a playoff game or two, take us to the Super Bowl, and then we'll love you. We'll build a statue and honor you, but only after you do your work.
Given last year's success too, I think he and Brady are the only quarterbacks to win 14 plus games of back-to-back seasons, which is kind of crazy to think about, right? So, I look at Minnesota this year. Minnesota's a 500 football team, right? They didn't have it at the quarterback position. McCarthy wasn't as good. Obviously, Wentz, when he filled in, it just wasn't the same. Jefferson's numbers were down. Addison's numbers were down. The run game numbers were down. Everything across the board. And I think Sam deserves a lot more credit than we gave him last year, right? Because they did kind of run him out of town, because I think he masked a really bad offensive line. I think Seattle's got a better offensive line, but there's got to be some consistency that we give him credit for, right? He's been a part of both these teams, kind of turning it around, because, Seattle wasn't really an on-the-radar team coming into the year. Now, certainly nobody was thinking this team would win 14 games. Sam takes over at the helm. immediately a flip is switched. JSN takes off, right? The running game wasn't great earlier in the year, but they figure it out, right? They're able to kind of play off each other. They can throw the ball down the field, which teams can't stack the box anymore, whatever. It's just complimentary football. The defense was great. We knew it was going to be pretty stinking good coming in, but Sam has done a heck of a job, and I think they love him there just because I can't remember the last time they hosted a playoff game. I know they haven't been the 1 seed since the Legion of Boom, going back to Russell Wilson and Richard Sherman and all those guys. Marshawn Lynch, I think it was 2013, 2014. But they haven't seen this level of regular season success in almost a decade. So that means something, right? And this is a really good fan base. And if you win games, they're going to love you. So, I mean, right now, I think Sam Darnold is I might even say a little still underrated, right? What he's able to do over the last 2 seasons, and especially this year with Seattle. So I think they love him. I don't think they're ready to run him out of town. And I don't think they're going to be drafting a quarterback, maybe not necessarily a day one quarterback anytime soon. Maybe you get a guy that can sit on the bench and learn something. But I think for now, Sam's the guy, and he's earned the job.
And Joe, if you don't mind, before we go on to the next game, just real quick, your thoughts from the ability to protect the quarterback in a way that they couldn't in that playoff game last year. Minnesota has struggled this year at an offensive line of protecting their quarterback and keeping the young J.J. McCarthy healthy. I think Seattle's run game proves itself they are a very good offensive line. The defense we've already spoken about, they're outstanding. They rank with the best in the league in every category, bar none. But really, give Sam enough time to throw, good things can happen. He's had some bad games, but technically speaking, he's one of those guys that you can put your faith in as an organization and say he's going to help us get the job done.
Well, 14 wins with two organizations, that says a lot about Sam Darnold, to be quite honest with you. And then, I mean, he took a lot of flack at the end of the year in Minnesota from a lot of people, from media, from sports writers, from other people. But that offensive line didn't play very well. I mean, they had a couple really bad matchups for that offensive line, i.e. Detroit and Green Bay, I think it was, or whomever it was when he played really bad. And, things happen like that, especially with a young guy. And he had 14 wins, and we were anointing him for most of the season. And then he has a couple bad games. He made some bad throws, but some of those throws were because the offensive line was god-awful. Okay, now he comes to Seattle with a fresh start. Minnesota had a chance to re-sign him. They chose not to, and I partly understand that because they had just drafted a quarterback in the top 10, and they were going to give him a chance to play. So Sam leaves. He goes to Seattle, and guess what? They win 14 games, and not only have a winning record, but now they're the top seed in the NFC. So guess what? Everything comes through Seattle, and the kicker to that is they can really run the ball, and they can really play defense. The two things that if quarterback play is just above average, they can go all the way to the Super Bowl. I'm not going to say they win it, but guess what? Because everything has to come through Seattle, and they have a chance to go all the way through to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and give credit to that division. Goodness gracious, 3 teams, all with double-digit victories. That, to me, was as impressive. If you look at the AFC East with the Patriots and the Bills, you look at the West out with the Broncos and the Chargers, you have got 3 teams that all make the playoffs. That was a tough division to win, and they get through with flying colors. So congratulations to Seattle. They end up winning the division. They end up with the best record in the NFC. They beat a very good 49er team on the road, and they win that one 13-3. Let's look at some of the other games, obviously, from today, the 1 o'clock first kicker. This is one that obviously we mentioned a little bit earlier, had playoff implications, even though neither team had anything to do with the playoffs. Joey, we'll start with you. If the Falcons win, that would help Carolina because of a tiebreaker with Tampa Bay. If the Saints win, then Carolina ends up losing their spot. Tampa gets to stay in the playoff. Just one of those things. And this was a close game. The final was 19-17. The Falcons win at home with a late field goal. Joey, we'll start with you.
Well, this was one of the few really competitive games of today because despite these teams not having a whole lot personally to play for, other teams were depending on both of these teams, and they knew that. And it's a division game. Anytime you end a regular season with a division game, then it's a lot to play for. It's not like they're playing somebody in the AFC where it's not a lot. There's still a lot of pride in these divisions and become division champion. And by the Falcons winning, it created a three-way tie for the division championship. So everybody gets three of the four teams gets to leave the season saying that they were the division champ. Although only one of them is going to the playoffs, they all three have right to say we were the division champs.
Well, when I was with Jerry Glanville many years ago, back in the 1990s, we went to California. We beat the 49ers and the Rams. We played San Diego. We played the Raiders. And we won all of them. And Jerry created a trophy that was about 8 feet high that said California State Champs on it. So how about that? Goofy days. But Brian, obviously, as a big Falcon fan that you are, it's good to beat the Hoodats, even though it's a close game. I have to admit, I'm very impressed with the last, 6-7 weeks where I think New Orleans in their locker room, they go, I think we get it. We're going to play defense as best we can. But offensively, I think we get it. We're spreading the ball out a little bit differently. They were very tough to play against. They may not have won all those games, but they sure got so much more impressive than they were in the first 5, 6, 8 games of the season.
You know, they were a different team once they sat Spencer Rattler down. Tyler Shuck is kind of under the radar, right? A lot of people are kind of scratching their heads once that pick was made very early in the second round. I don't think it was I think it was the top 4 pick in the second round. A lot of people were wondering, injury history. He was at Louisville for a long time, but I mean, the arm strength that they drafted him for is there. The playmaking is there. He's, deceptive with his legs, right? He doesn't love to run, but he can, and he's shown it, right? I think he's got 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns on the season. So, if nothing else, he was a spark for the locker room, right? They ran the ball a little bit better when he came in. Chris Olave's numbers jumped up when he came in. They passed the ball a little bit better. The defense played a little better down the stretch too. But a culmination of things. It's especially when you're a young football team, which the Saints have an infusion of young talent. It's going to take some time to acclimate, right? They got to adapt, and they got to learn what they're doing. They got to figure it out in the system, the scheme. And Kellen Moore being a first-year coach, there's a lot going on. And I think I don't want to say once they were eliminated from the playoffs, but once they were, you settle down, you're not in contention. And the idea is let's just go out and get better every single week. And they did. They started winning some football games. And I think if nothing else, it's a bunch of confidence that they get to carry over to the next season. I don't know what the roster is going to look like. They'll have a pretty good pick, so they're obviously going to add some guys. But, based on how they started the first month or so, this team is a very pleasant surprise down the stretch. And they got a lot to build, going forward into next year.
And Joey, what impressed me most is that, as Brian mentioned, the Spencer Rattler benching. Did he do a better job in a shorter amount of time than, let's say, Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders? I mean, did he really earn his spot in terms of the rookies of being able to, hey, I can play in this league, I'll show you, and he certainly did.
Absolutely. I mean, he was a guy that had a lot of experience. I mean, he was an older guy coming out of a matter of fact, I think he's maybe a 6-year guy coming out of Louisville because he's had some injuries and ACLs and what have. So he's missed a lot of time, but he was really a good passer there. I mean, he was really underrated. A lot of personnel people thought that he would sneak into the back end of the first round, and he was a second-round pick. And a lot of people were scratching their head because if you don't keep up with that kind of thing, you didn't know who Tyler Shuck was. But he was a big athletic guy that has a nice arm that's really bright. And once the game slowed down a little bit for him. It's a good thing that they did not start him at the beginning of the season because he was able to see some of the things that Spencer Rattler did and kind of adjust his game accordingly. He went in and I think I don't know what his stats were yesterday or today, whenever it was, but he had 3 weeks in a row that he passed for over 300 yards. Okay,
and then 259 today with a touchdown, 259.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I mean, so he's done some good things, and he's only going to get better. Now they'll get better weapons on the outside for him. The run game, hopefully they'll find a way to improve that. They'll get a little better on the offensive line, and defensively they have some decisions to make in New Orleans with some veteran players and what they need to do. But you give the head coach credit. I mean, the head coach is wishing we had 5 more games to play because guess what? Yeah. Maybe we have a chance to get into the playoffs. They have a young team at a lot of key positions. And those guys are starting to figure out in a new system. So congratulations to Kellen Moore on in my opinion, a successful first year. It started slow like it's going to do for a lot of young first-time head coaches, but guess what? I think they did some good things.
They caught up quickly. And speaking of coaching, obviously on the other side, the Falcons, I don't think Raheem Morris or Fontenot got a chance to put their keys in the ignition, if that, so to speak, depending on their electric key fobs and what they've got. But rough day at the office for a Falcon. I think Arthur Blank wanted to make sure that the message was clear, even though he had to hire a firm to make the decision for him. Joey, quickly, your thoughts there. There is already our opening of the firing squad and an open position from a coaching perspective started before the Monday massacre. Give me your thoughts on that.
Well, Black Monday's tomorrow, as we all know in the football industry. That's where a lot of things happen. Some teams started earlier, like the Giants and Tennessee, and the Falcons started tonight. I can't say that, given the situation, that I'm completely surprised. I think the expectations they had were higher than what they had. However, I don't think you can look at this in a capsule. I think this is a bigger picture than that. I think this started last year. I think it started with Kirk Cousins, the money you pay him, and then you for a guy that was coming off of ACL, you guarantee that much money. So I think that was evaluated, and then with the 8th pick of the draft, you draft a quarterback who had been often injured throughout his career. So I think all these things, when you're evaluating what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, if this staff deserves a chance for the following year, and if they do, will it be better than it was this past year, or should we just do a clean sweep? So I think that's the major decisions. The easy decision was to move on from the head coach and the general manager that created some of these problems with continuity, which they did not have for a long time. So it's unfortunate, but not totally unexpected.
Well, Brian, losing to the Jets and the Dolphins in the middle of the season and really sinking your chances of making the playoffs, I think the deal was sealed earlier in the year. Obviously, the culmination of it was right after the ball game. But give me your thoughts here on the coaching change, the general manager change, and then now the new shift that the organization is going to have in the culture in that building.
Well, I mean, if you go based along, the Arthur Smith firing, the idea was, hey, we're a middle of the pack team, right? We're going to try to infuse the roster with talent, and then we're going to try to be a playoff team. We're going to try to win what consistently has been, as far as win totals, the worst division of football for the last 5 years. It just, since Tom Brady left, there had not been a lot of wins in the NFC South. That's just kind of been a consistency. So to have all 3 teams finish 8-9 to be eliminated mathematically a month ago, that's tough to overcome, even if you win all those games, right? And they did, but they didn't mean anything at that point. You don't have a first-round pick. This team's got a lot of soul searching to do in the offseason. At least figure out what your identity is, right? Because, does Kirk Cousins stick around? Obviously, you're going to play off Bijan Robinson and Drake London. You got some young talent, but now you don't have a ton of cap space. You got guys that are free agents, and you're going to have to maneuver some stuff. I think it just, there weren't enough wins, right? There weren't enough moments. There weren't enough highlights. You can talk about the quarterback situation. I think Raheem mismanaged that. You go back to the kicking situation from last year. The Falcons have lost 4 games in the last 2 years just off of, unable to make field goals. And some of them are at home, indoors. So pulling the wrong strings, the clock management, there just wasn't a whole lot of good, right? I know Raheem, they finished strong, and that's phenomenal. And, I think that might carry some momentum for him maybe into his next gig. But I think Arthur made his mind up a month ago, and I think that's why this happened. I mean, if you go back and look, the loss to the Jets is very tough to overcome. And then the Miami game, it was 30-0, essentially, right? It wasn't even competitive. You're in your building in a game you got to have, and you're trying to fight for at that point, they were under 500, so you're still fighting for your playoff lives. And I think those games held more weight than the wins did down the stretch. And I think that's obviously why Arthur made the decision that he did.
Yeah, too little, too late. Obviously, we feel for Raheem Morris, for Terry Fontenot, anyone else that's part of the organization. I know I personally hate it. I've been cut, released, let go. Joey, you know what that feels like. You don't wish it on anybody, but obviously those moves open doors for others. And the Atlanta Falcons will be looking starting tomorrow morning. Well, they're already looking, and they probably have been now for a few weeks. So Falcons end up winning the last game of the season. Good for them. They end up beating the Saints 17-19. Next game we were going to look at. Let's look at
do you want to? The Steelers-Ravens game just went final. If you want to go back to that one.
All right, let's do it.
Steelers pull it off 26-24. Yeah. Boswell misses the extra point to put him up by 3, and then Loop comes down on the other end and misses a chip shot, pushes it right. So Steelers win 10 games. a big one for Mike Tomlin and their Aaron Rodgers head back to the playoffs. They're hosting a playoff game next week. I don't know
So
which
the
game they
interesting
got.
thing about this, I'll say, is these are kind of games the Steelers win. When their backs are against the wall, when nobody, even the people in Pittsburgh, don't think they have a chance, these are the type games they win. These are the games they brought Aaron Rodgers to town for. If we can keep it close during the regular season, his veteran experience should carry us through. And I think he played, and I'm not looking at the final stats here, but I would be surprised if he didn't play a pretty efficient game, even without really coming down the stretch. His best two of his best three targets, which are DK Metcalf and Darnell Washington. They were able to find a way, because he's a bright, smart guy, to figure out a way to win versus an opponent that is, like we talked about earlier, that kind of mirrors them in a lot of ways from a toughness, from a attitude standpoint. So for a team that was hot, that just rushed for a gazillion yards versus Green Bay last week. So kudos to the Steelers organization. That pride and that from wearing those stars on your helmet, there's something to be said for that.
And they win 4 out of the last 5, Joey. There's a certain part of, yep, we're going to get it together. That loss last week at Cleveland, obviously everybody's pulling their hair. How you lose to them? It's a division game, you lose. But you win 4 out of the last 5, you get yourself in position. And kudos to Baltimore for coming back from the ashes, so to speak, and being kind of a Phoenix season for them. Harbaugh did a pretty good job in the second half of the year, getting them to fight in ways that they probably wouldn't have otherwise, or maybe a different coach would have had them. Is he in danger of losing his job because of that poor start that they had where they lose 4, 5, 6 games in a row?
He shouldn't be. He shouldn't be. I mean, he's a really good football coach. I mean, though he still has the pulse of that locker room, and injuries happen with everybody. I mean, some teams handle injuries better than others, like the 49ers will say. I mean, they've dealt with it and they've done an amazing job. And this team didn't. I mean, because their quarterback was out for a long time. They had other injuries. But from a coaching, a game management perspective, an attitude perspective, John Harbaugh is still a really good football coach. He always have been. And I would say this: if there are any rumors that the Ravens would want to move on from him, if I'm the Raiders, if I'm the Giants, I will give up my first-round draft pick to get that head coach, because that will change the direction of the organization if you have great leadership at the top. So he's worth giving up. And the same way with Mike Tomlin. I mean, teams will give up a draft pick to get the right guy leading the ship, to get the right captain. They will give up a draft pick.
And a guy that really doesn't demand a whole lot of attention on himself the way even his brother seems to. He's really been one of those guys that has been steady at the rudder, in my opinion. So we congratulate him, even though they go 8-9 and miss the playoffs. Brian, you had mentioned earlier that the Ravens are one of those teams that throughout all of your life, they've been there. They've been consistent. They came from Cleveland. You got to remember that Art Modell brought them from Cleveland. And there was that year, Joey, where there were 31 teams in the league and the schedule was just all whacked out. But the Texans come in within a year or two, and there's 32 teams, and that's where the league is settled. But the Ravens been a part of that, Brian, for such a amazing part of it. And would you expect any other organization to go 2-6 or whatever they were at one point, and then fight for the last game of the season? They got a chance to make it in the playoffs.
Yeah, at some point though, you just got to look at it and say, man, Lamar Jackson's got to stay healthy again for a full year, right? Because it's just kind of a lot of what ifs with this team. Because I would say this: I don't think Lamar was 100% in this game. I mean, he missed last week, So this has just been. It's very, very difficult to win in this league without your quarterback, especially a guy who's been MVP of the league, one of the better players. And I think that's just kind of been the Achilles heel of this Ravens team. It's just it's tough to win when you're missing your star guy for 2 months out of the year, the last couple of years like they had. So it's still a very good team. I would say maybe got some questions going the offseason, like with Derrick Henry and whatever. But I mean, I just at this point I don't know when Derrick Henry's going to slow down. He may just walk away, right? Because it's just he's been just an absolute juggernaut for them. The running game was good. I think maybe they need to improve their passing game in the offseason, but this is still a very good football team. And, I wouldn't be surprised if they're back here in this situation next year. Maybe they win the division next year. Who knows? But it's still a very good team. They're going to have a lot of talent. And, like anybody else, you got to stay healthy. I think that's the toughest part. It's everyone gets banged up. But, unfortunately for the Ravens, it's been Lamar Jackson the last couple of years.
Well, let's
just think where they would have been if they had committed to running the ball, games 12 or 13 through 17. I mean, there were times when on the second half when Derrick Henry was on the sideline. So, and that's not a player issue. That's a coaching issue. Yeah. I mean, if your quarterback is out, just like they did in the Green Bay game, they knew the blueprint. Why weren't you using that blueprint, 3 or 4 games earlier when the quarterback was out? I mean, you have to. So everything that happens, I mean, this is a players' league. The NFL is a players' league. It's a quarterback's league. You either have one or you don't. You either have one or you're looking. But it's also a head coach's league. So now, why are we not giving the football to this guy? So, unlike Dan Campbell, you don't necessarily have to take over the play calling duty, but you have to demand that you give 22 to football. Okay, I don't care what kind of rotation we're running. You give 22 to football. And they didn't do that for stretches in the season. And I think ultimately, when you go back and give a full view look at what happened in perspective with this team, that has to play a part in it.
Absolutely, right? Give that man the ball. And then defense kind of shored up a little bit. They were giving up way too many points early in the season. They had some issues going on there, and they did everything they could to kind of plug those holes with the fingers that they had available. And that isn't always easy to do. They struggled mightily with it, but they did turn it around. In the last game of the season, there was significance, right? It was for a playoff spot. They end up falling short, and Pittsburgh wins it 26-24. Next game we're going to look at, another organization that kind of had an injury bug, if you will, and a quarterback issue with that. Joey, I'll start with you. They end up losing this game. The Bengals do by 2. 2018 is the final at home. Joe Burrow is everything to that organization, but post-game conferences and whatever, Joe doesn't seem very happy, even though he's making about $50 million a year. Can you put anything on that in particular? And do we congratulate Cleveland for kind of bouncing back and getting 5 wins during the season? That's much better than going with 2 rookie quarterbacks and 41 quarterbacks that they've had, 42 ever since the 1998. It's just amazing how they've run for quarterbacks there at Cleveland.
Well, money can give you things, give you toys, help other people out, but it doesn't necessarily make you happy. And
right.
Because of how you get it and what you do with it. And the thing for Joe is Joe's tired of losing. Joe has this organization they have climbed on Joe's back, and they have not given him help on the offensive line like in forever. The defense has been suspect forever. Now they got better during the year, even despite the holdout with their Trey Hendrickson, I believe his name is, and then he comes back and play, and then he gets hurt, so he's missed time. So they have a lot of restructuring to do. So despite the money he's getting, he's frustrated because he's a competitor. First and foremost, he's a competitor. He wants to win football games, and he wants the people around him to be well paid. But ultimately, they don't want to see Pittsburgh and Baltimore going to the playoffs all the time. They want to be there sometime too. And like today, he went 29-30, missed 10 passes, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and guess what? They lose 20-18. Yeah, they lose 20-18. Now on the flip side of that, Cleveland had everything to play for because first and foremost, they wanted Myles Garrett to get the sack record. And as I said early in the season, before all this became an issue, I thought he was one of the top 5 defensive ends to ever play this game. And, for him to get the sack record on a team like that is incredible. I mean, there were times in the last 2 games that every snap he had 6 hands on him. If he was on the left side, the line shifted left.
His post-game conferences were hilarious. Yeah,
he had 6 sets of hands on him. I mean, everybody was touching him, trying to keep him away from the quarterback. So for him to get that sack that it eluded him for 2 weeks is amazing to him. Kudos to him because he's a generational type defensive end, freak athlete. And Shador, I think Shador has done enough to be the starter going into next season. I mean, he's played pretty good. The offensive line is banged up. I mean, he really doesn't have much of a receiver core. The tight ends have been a little bit inconsistent. His best running back was out. And still, guess what? He found a way to do this. So I think they're another team that's going to be in flux because I'm not sure that head coach and that general manager will be back either. So, we'll see about Black Monday, but we'll also see what happens this week once the evaluation process goes on with the Browns. I have a lot of questions about how the Browns mismanaged a lot of things this year and the way they do business from an analytical standpoint. So at some point, the analytics is great. And there are a few teams that do that. And I'll be curious about the teams that rely heavily on analytics, what their records were. But they're one of the teams that rely heavily on analytics, and they've done that for a few years since the Haslams have taken over. And analytics should be a part of what you're doing. It shouldn't be the dominant factor in what you're doing, because guess what? Your eyes have to tell you if your team has momentum, if defensively you have momentum, offensively you have momentum. Why would you go for it? And Dan Campbell saying, why would you go for it on 4th and 4 in your own territory when you have no momentum in the game? As we saw the Steelers game, there was a lot of momentum shifts in that game, and momentum can carry you a long way. So when you kind of use numbers to take that factor out of the game, then you're destined.
Yeah, and Brian, if you don't mind, just Bengals. They've got both teams have some issues. The state of Ohio has some issues, right? If you can hear me, okay? We're having some technical difficulties right now, but the Buckeyes, Cincinnati, and Cleveland, all kind of everybody. The whole state of Ohio is a little down right now. But who has a better chance next year of making a run for the playoffs? If you were a betting man, would you think more Cincinnati, or would it be Cleveland in terms of they're going to have a better record than they have this year? They'll invest in the right things at the right time. What's the direction for you?
Well, they're both in the same division behind Baltimore and Baltimore and Pittsburgh. However, I can't say at this point I'm ever going to bet against Joe Burrow. I think he's that special a football player. So if you're asking me which one of those two teams, given Cleveland's history and Cincinnati's history is not much better, but I think I would have to bet on Joe Burrow getting that team across the playoff threshold before I say the Browns.
Brian, your thoughts? Same question to you. Cincinnati, Cleveland, a lot of work to be done. Together, they won a total of 11 games, but certainly not enough to get into the playoff race. What do you do? How do you fix things in Cincinnati's camp first?
I think the biggest question mark is going to be, is Joe Burrow going to be on my football team next year? Because the way he's, like Joey said, I think right now his biggest issue is they're not winning games, but also the protection up front is bad. He's missing time every single year. He's dealing with lower body injuries, which, as a quarterback, as any athlete, you don't want to deal with that. So that's just been a constant for him. And I'll say this, I think Cincinnati has the most question marks coming in, because do you keep your head coach? Do you keep your GM, right? If you trade your quarterback, is Jamar Chase going to want to follow suit? Because, hey, they're friends, right? Do I want to stay put and play for a really bad football team? They don't have a lot on defense. I don't know what they're going to do with Hendrickson. It's kind of a mess. And if you're Cleveland, at least from the position of, we ripped the Band-Aid off, right? We went out, we got a young quarterback, we got a young running back, we got a young tight end. We'll probably go add some receiver depth. It's and talent in free agency in the draft, but a lot of question marks to this team. I don't know if the Browns keep their coach or their GM either. It's just kind of a mess right now. It's a lot of question marks about these teams, but if Joe Burrow's playing quarterback, like Joey said, I think Cincinnati right now, obviously going to next year, has the nod. And I think if they can stay healthy all year, I think they could play with anybody in that division.
It's interesting how Joe has matured and really shown what he can do, and he's got some healthy specialists around him, receivers, tight ends, obviously some running backs. If he has time, you can put the ball in the hands of anybody. You're going to score 30 or 40 points, but you know what? You can't protect me. it's time to change that. So obviously that's a big issue for both of those teams. Let's look at the next game. NFC North, significance here for Green Bay, right? They decide to rest a lot of their players. Floor gets criticized for that, but he goes, you know what? We don't care about this week. It's next week. So Joey, we'll start to you. Vikings end up winning a home game. Packers back into the playoffs, and literally and figuratively, they back in with a loss. Give me your thoughts here about Green Bay sitting a bunch of guys and just being ready for next week when it counts.
Well, I think a lot of teams did that today, and as a front office guy, I don't blame them, because guess what? If your team can't advance in their seeding, they're already seeded. They know where they're gonna be. They can't move up any. Then why risk injury? So that's what they did. I mean, so a loss, a win or a loss wasn't going to change where they were going to be in the playoffs. They were already in the playoffs, so it didn't matter whether they won or lost the game. Now I know the guys I'm really depending on, they're going to be healthy getting to the playoff, which is what this is all about, getting into the playoffs. So, good for Green Bay to sit those guys. The Vikings needed to play well. I think their quarterback played, and then he got hurt again, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So who knows? I mean, I don't know if they found out anything that they didn't already know in Minnesota about what they have by winning this game. I don't think they learned one more thing today than they did yesterday.
Packers are 9-7-1. Brian, 9-8 is how Minnesota finishes. If I'm a Viking fan or a player on that team or in the organization itself, I'm feeling pretty good about the way that we fought back and just missed the playoff by a half a game. That's not too bad.
Well, I mean, the offense was abysmal at times, right? The defense was consistent all year. Give credit to Flores, and they knew what they have on defense. They're a pretty good unit, but I will say this. We talked earlier in the show about Sam Darnold, kind of riding the ship and hiding how bad that offensive line was. I think they're a little bit better, but they're still not very good. And I think that was apparent down the stretch. Now you can blame a lot of, what happened. McCarthy didn't play his best football, and Wentz when he was in, and the run game wasn't, tremendous. But I think all of that starts with your offensive front. I think they're going to kind of have to take the blueprint that, we talked about it last week with Washington and Chicago. You're going to have to go fix your offensive line. You got money, you got first-round picks. If you do think that McCarthy's the guy, you got to protect him, and you got to go get his left tackle. You got to go get his road graders up front, and you got to make it as easy for him as possible. And I think they're going to do that in the offseason. But like Joey said, we knew what this Minnesota team was. They're capable of this, right? They're not going to score a ton of points. This is the kind of game they want to play. I know they're playing against the Packers' third-string guys, but they want to play this kind of slugfest. Keep it in front of us. We'll stop the run, disguise what we're doing on defense, our coverages, our blitzes, whatever else, and get after you. That's what they've done since Flores has been there. It's been successful. I will say this. I think they missed the playoffs, but they're a couple of drives away from being a playoff team. I'll put it right. They were right in the thick of things in this division. I know they go 9-8. They were eliminated a little while ago, but this is a good football team. They just need to get their quarterback situation figured out, and they need to get their offensive line figured out going forward.
And one other thing before we go on this topic, they have a major decision to figure out, because Brian Flores was in the last year of a contract. He didn't re-sign in the offseason, so he was kind of betting on himself. So they need to figure out a way to either sign him, or he'll become a head coach, or because he's a free agent, he can go to another team for he can go to the highest bidder if he like. If he's not going to be a head coach, he can go to the highest bidder and make a lot of money. So that poses another problem, because their defense was the strongest part of this team, and if your coordinator leaves, then that's another problem you have as an organization. So it'll be interesting where they go for next year.
Well, 9-8 is a winning record. Didn't make the playoffs, but you had a winning record. Detroit also. So every team in the NFC North ends up with a winning record, which is a rare occurrence. And congratulations on that last win there of the year. Let's look at the next game. Another meaningless one. Giants end up winning their fourth. Joe, I'll start with you. Jackson Dart throws for about 230 yards. He has 2 touchdowns. They win the last 2 games of the season, so they get half their wins in the last 2 weeks of the season. Cowboys end up losing again, 34-17. Both teams have a lot to fix, but I'm more surprised with the downfall of Dallas than I am with where the Giants are. With all the injuries they had, at least there's some justification with that.
Well, Yes, I'm not surprised because, again, this time of year, running the ball and defense. Okay, Dallas's defense has, while there was a stretch of time shortly after the trade deadline where they played okay, their defense has been pretty pathetic most of the year, to be quite honest with you. Offensively, they've been a pretty good team, but defensively, they've been pretty pathetic most of the year. So I'm not surprised where they finished. I know Dak had a chance to be the leader, the passing leader, and he would have been the first Cowboy ever to be the passing leader. And I think he sat down after 2 quarters today, not to get hurt going into the all season, which was, again, they aren't in playoff contention, so that was the right thing to do. But they have some decisions to make with a coordinator, which I think they're going to change, with players, and again, all of this goes back to the elderly gentleman with a lot of money that's sitting in the box. He kind of botched the way this defense happened, and that started in the off season. So doing things his way. So I don't know if he was trying to look into the future with things, how he wanted to do things. He didn't care if they made the playoffs this year. He was hoping, but he really didn't care. I think as long as the team is relevant and they're making a lot of money, that might be more important than getting to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, nothing to be said there. Brian, first and foremost, Jackson Dart finishes the season, gets through his rookie year. He gets hurt, misses a couple of games, has to wait behind Russell Wilson to get a chance to play. But give me your perspective. Successful year for him. Good to get through after Ole Miss and playoff games, bowl games, etc. Talk a little bit about the young man from Ole Miss and his ability to kind of make his way in the New York audience.
Well, all things considered, I mean, he lost his best offensive weapon in Malik Neighbors very early on for him. So he made the best out of a bad situation. This is not a very good football team. Scatabo and him masked a lot of really bad things on this Giants offense. Offensive line isn't great. The receiving core outside of Neighbors isn't great. But you know what? They showed some flashes. That game they had against Philly at home, I think it was a Thursday nighter, they looked like they could compete. And I think it was one of those things where they're a young team and they didn't care, right? Oh, we're playing the defending champs. We don't care. Division rival, we don't care. Philadelphia in prime time, they've won all these games over these last couple of years. We didn't care. And they came out and they played a great football game. And I think if you go back and you evaluate from there, right? Obviously, Dart gets banged up, and they're going to have to figure out whatever coach comes in is going to have to teach him how to slide and throw the ball away at least a little bit, right? Because it's just he's taking too many hits and he's getting too banged up. But I think they got some really young talent. Unfortunately, they kind of shot themselves in the foot because they won 2 meaningless games down the stretch. They had a chance for the first overall pick. I think they're picking 5th now, if I'm not mistaken. So this will be okay. They can add some talent, but this team has a lot of weapons on offense. If everybody stays healthy and they can kind of figure everything out and they can infuse some talent in the offseason, this could be a very good football team next year. I think they have their quarterback room solved, which I think that's the biggest issue for a young team and a bad football team, right? Is let's get our quarterback in-house. Let's build around him. And, another regime change, right? The Giants got to figure out who their coach is. I think they kept their GM. I don't know if that's in stone, though, but they're going to have to, again, just nail the picks, add some guys in free agency, and this could be a pretty good team next year. I don't know about a playoff team, but they can certainly compete in that division.
Giants win at 34-17. Next game we're going to look at, guys, we talked about Jacksonville. They win again. They beat the Titans. Good news is Trevor throws for 3 touchdowns, 250 yards, give or take. But they only rush for, 64, Joey? So is that a problem, or is that just last game of the year we're going to rest people and it doesn't matter against Tennessee? It will matter when we play in 2 weeks.
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. They built up an early lead. The Titans scored, when the game was really competitive and everybody was playing. Cam Ward scored on a run. He got injured. He left the game, didn't come back with a shoulder. And I think the Titans the air went out of them at that point. And again, if I'm going to talk about the Titans, I'm going to start with Simmons because he really is a special player. I mean, some of the things he was doing early in that game when it was actually still a game from a defensive perspective and the number of hands that had to be accounted for him is unfortunate he's with the Titans and they're rebuilding because somebody should have traded for him at the trade deadline because he is playing really good football. He would have been a really good football player going into the playoffs. But that being said, Jacksonville is in a really good spot. They're going to go into the playoffs. I think if I'm not mistaken, they play the Bills in Jacksonville. And if I had to choose right now, I would choose the Jacksonville Jaguars to beat the Buffalo Bills in Jacksonville. I really would. The way they're
There are
playing.
a lot of folks, Joey, I'm going to have you comment on this before we go to Brian, that would say, come on now, Bills, doesn't matter. They turn it on. They know what to do. They are a playoff-ready team. I'm not so sure this year. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. We'll talk about it later. But again, congratulations to Jacksonville to come as far as they have in a shorter period of time. Remember, it was competitive for a little while. The Colts were just running away with the division. And then for obvious reasons, that fell apart. Jacksonville said, hey, we're still here. Defensively, we can play. Guess what? If you can't score on us, we're not going to lose. Worst we can do is tie.
Well, I'll say this before Brian goes. The most underrated part of Jacksonville's team is their defense. Their defense is really good. I think it's one of the top 5 defenses in the National Football League. They have some really good players at every level. At linebacker, they have a pass rusher. They have a pretty good defensive lineman. They have a couple guys in the secondary. And this is without a guy that was supposed to be a difference maker in Hunter.
Yeah.
I had questions about that, and because of the way he's built, those guys usually aren't difference makers in the National Football League, guys that are built like him. So it's interesting, but Jacksonville is a really good football team. And as long as Trevor can play within himself, and I think Liam Cohen has done an excellent job with developing him and getting him in the right situation, I think Jacksonville has a chance to make a dent in the playoffs.
And Brian, they got a kicker that can go maybe inside 60
70.
yards.
Yeah,
70,
inside of 70 is almost automatic. Yeah, it's crazy.
Gosh, unbelievable. So they've got really a secret weapon that even if it's close, instead of punting, they're going for now the field position could be an issue. But, defense, as Joey mentioned, has really been a difference maker for them, especially in the last half of the season. They've kind of quietly under the radar impressed everybody. I know I had to apologize a couple of weeks ago, and not that, Trevor was expecting it, but, I beat up on him a little bit, and I'm man enough to say I certainly was wrong, Trevor. You have impressed me, and so has the team. What about you?
They've won 8 games in a row, very quietly. 8 wins in a row. They haven't lost a football game since end October. So this team is playing, all phases, like Joey mentioned. And the crazy part is they don't have a ton of household names. They're doing it with Parker Washington and Jacoby Myers, and they're doing with ETN. And Trevor Lawrence is a guy who, a lot of people kind of wrote him off, and we kind of did. You just talked about that. We kind of wrote him off. But Leo Cohen has done a great job. You can see Tampa offensively is missing him, right? And the play calling, everything, they're discombobulated, and it's the opposite. The Jaguars have figured it out. And not a ton of household names on this defense. They have 32 sacks as a team, nothing crazy that jumps out at you, but right. They bend, they don't break, they make plays, they don't give up a lot of points, and they're going to make you earn each and every yard. And I think it grinds at you, right? And that's why I think late in the year, late in games, they're just running away with teams. They're beating up on teams. And, this game wasn't particularly close. I don't think the Titans are a good team. I think they're behind the Giants as far as I think they need more talent, especially on the outside for Cam Ward. You got to protect him, whatever. They got a busy offseason ahead of them. But it's just this Jaguars team is red hot at the right time. And like Joey said, I think they should be the outright favorite against Buffalo. I think I don't know if even right now if I would favor – New England or Denver. I know they'd have to go play there, but they just played in Denver and played a really good football game. So the Jaguars are clicking at the right time, and until they lose, it's going to be very, very difficult to pick against them.
Yeah, and 41-7, the final in this game. Obviously, a little bit, one of the best teams in the league against one of the worst. It kind of proved itself in the score there. But congratulations to Jacksonville on doing a great job and impressing a lot of folks, including us. Let's look at the next game that we have right here, where the Colts and the Texans are playing. The Texans, they had a bye, a reason that they needed to get this one more victory, and they certainly do. 38-30 is the final. And Joy, I'm going to start with you just because the Indianapolis Colts 6-7 weeks ago, someone on our panel said, you know what, I'm not sure if they're going to win another game. And Nostradamus here, Joey Clinkscales, was certainly right about that. Unfortunately, for the Colts and their fans, you were right, but they just struggled mightily. Couldn't run the ball anymore. They couldn't throw it, and they couldn't stop anybody.
Well, I hate to be right. I hate I was right about that, to be honest with you, because nobody likes to lose, especially you don't want to go on a 6-game losing streak. Those things are hard, but the schedule they played early. I mean, they won a lot of close games early. They blew a couple teams out that they should have blown out, but with the and defensively, they start getting some injuries on the defense. I mean, the best defensive lineman went out for a few games, and then you had a linebacker, and then you make the big trade, and then he's out for like 4 games after the trade. So there are a lot of things defensively that went wrong, and then you lose your quarterback on offense. Then you have to bring in a 44-year-old quarterback that lacks arm strength, and you can only do so many things. And now you're facing 8 men in the box because now we're going to stop the run. I mean, so there are a lot of things that said this team may not win another football game. So I hate to be right, but it is what it is. They didn't win another football game.
And it's not George Blanda that they're bringing back in at 44 years old. Here's a guy that has not been playing for almost 5 years. Come on. That's pretty interesting. Brian, Joey brings up a lot of facts, but let's just talk simply about let's go with the good guys, the Texans. They're playing a much better brand of football. Their defense can bring it. Gave up a lot of points today. They probably sat a few guys, but nonetheless, talk about the Texans going in with all the momentum that they have right now. They'll be on the road for the first week, but nonetheless, they're not perfect. Don't get me wrong, but they're peaking at the right time, and that's important in the playoffs.
Well, they're the only team hotter than the Jaguars right now. They've won 9 in a row. They won 9 games in a row. Think about what that is from an NFL standpoint. To win 9 games in a row. Basketball is one thing, baseball is one thing, hockey when you're playing almost every other night. But to do it in the NFL it's a very impressive feat. And By the way, the last team that the Jaguars lost to were these Houston Texans in a must-win game they kind of had to have early in the year. But C.J. Stroud, his numbers don't jump at you, but he's playing more confident football, right? He's not turning the ball over. He's finding Nico Collins down the field. And if you go watch this team the first month or so of the season, it's just their offense was very sluggish. It was very, very pedestrian, right? They were almost scared to throw the ball down the field. And they've opened it up a little bit, and they've had some success. I think a lot of it, too, is they realized how good this defense was. This defense is superb. I think it's the best unit in the league, top to bottom. But defense is going to travel. I mean, this is a team just like Jacksonville. I don't think anybody else in the AFC wants to face these guys. And I think the AFC playoff picture right now is wide open, right? I think it's wide open because I would not be surprised if any team that qualified for the playoffs has a chance to win it. And then I'll go to the cold stat, insult to injury. Oh, by the way, they traded away their first-round draft pick to the Jets. So they don't have a pick. Didn't make the playoffs. Don't have a pick. Don't have a quarterback next year really either, right? I don't know if Riley Leonard's going to be your guy or who you bring in, but I think Phillip Rivers is officially retired for good. I think he's done, right? I don't think he'll come back for a third tour of duty, but Joey
Bobby Aguirre is available, and they can get Ed Orgeron.
Brett Favre. Maybe Brett Favre will bounce back out of retirement.
Brett can come out of retirement
for
the 5th time.
But it's just, this team went from we were talking Jonathan Taylor and Daniel Jones with the MVP conversation, and now they didn't qualify for the playoffs. They're under 500. So just the way it all worked out for them, it's a tough going. It's a lot to figure out, but it's gonna be really, really difficult having to do all this without your quarterback next year. Because even if Daniel Jones is their guy, he's not going to be healthy next year, and they don't have a first-round pick. Just a lot of questions in Houston, and they got a lot of stuff they got to figure out.
They do. 38-30 is the final here of this one. Houston qualifies for the playoffs. Congratulations, 12 wins for them. Good season, and they'll be playing next week in the wild card game. Buffalo Bills, they get 35 points. They only give up 8. So defensively against a very bad Jets team, they get the nice win here. Their quarterback has 4 touchdowns, and he throws for 259 yards in a meaningless game. Oh, it's Mitch Trubisky. I'm sorry, it's not Josh Allen. So Joey, they sat some players, and they still dominated the way that they should. This is a team that's been around for long enough. They've been playing the Ravens. They've been playing the Chiefs. They've been playing everybody in the AFC to try to get a chance to get the Super Bowl. Do they finally have what it takes? Because you just said a moment ago, you like Jacksonville hosting this game next week. What do the Bills need to do in order to be ready for this one?
Well, I'm disappointed in the Bills only from the standpoint of, Josh Allen is a special quarterback. They put a lot on his plate to do to take this team out. They don't have any special people on the outside to throw to. They do have a special running back in James Cook. Defensively, they've been hot and cold most of the year. So, that's kind of been a little bit of a disappointing thing because you've had players, Ed Oliver and others, out of the lineup for extended periods of time. So you don't know. I don't know what they're going to have going to Jacksonville, but Buffalo record coming into the season, they had one game all year that was going to be out of their time zone. Okay, so they had a golden opportunity to play really well, and they blew that opportunity with some early losses and some late losses. And Josh didn't always play his best game. I mean, he threw more interceptions this year than he had in the past. He used his legs more, so he did some good things from that standpoint. But I'm just not sure as a football team they're as well-rounded to make a real run in the playoffs as maybe they were last year or the year before last. I don't think that this year's team is as good as those teams going down the stretch. And I'm just going to say a couple things about the Jets, and then I'm going to let it go. They are really –
Tell me how you feel.
Bad. I spent 17 years in that organization. So when I first got there, when Richie Kotite was there, we were really bad. Okay, we were really bad. There was a lot of bad pieces, but we were really bad. Okay, but we weren't this bad. And what I mean by that is we're talking about a Jets football team that created an NFL record today. They're the only team in National Football League history to finish a season without an interception. That means there was no tipped up ball. A quarterback didn't throw a bad pass that was intercepted.
No.
Somebody didn't hit the quarterback when the ball fluttered in the air and you got it. I mean, that's almost impossible to do.
Tips, no bouncing off someone's hands into yours, nothing.
And listen to this. There was 12-game seasons in the National Football League a long time ago.
14 games?
14 games, 16 games, now 17 games. Everybody had an interception, but the 2025 New York Jets, the 2025 New York Jets never had an interception. I mean, that's absolutely horrid. You fired the defensive coordinator. You probably should have fired the offensive coordinator because they didn't have a plan on offense. I mean, there were no answers. When things went bad, there were no answers. I'm over-talking the Jets. They were just bad. I almost used some language.
You fired the special teams coach too, just because you got to fire him too.
And
fire the water boy, fire the clicking guy, get them all out of here. Get them. Everybody's got to go. Hey, everyone.
Don't get me started.
TJ Watt has 2 interceptions this year by accident. He had one tonight. It was an accident. The ball just landed in his hands. He just caught it. He's thank you for that. Yeah.
The Jets got 53 men on the roster and some coaches, and they still can't get one interception.
Can't get one by accident. Man.
Even a blind squirrel can't get a nut in the New York Jets organization. What a shame. All right. Well, tough break there for the Jets. They set a record that probably won't ever get beaten, broken. And if it does, it can only be tied. They own it now. It's unbelievable. All right, Brian, your thoughts here on the Bills and the Jets before we go. First, let's talk about the good guys, the Bills, and they're kind of cruising, right? They're in second gear, maybe third gear, whatever. And now it's time to really turn it on. Do you see the momentum happening in that area for them, where they're playoff ready and can play full speed?
I think so, but it's interesting because when you rest your guys, right, you never know what that week off will do. Sometimes with the bye or whatever, it's different, but a lot of teams are in playoff mode. The Steelers are in playoff mode today, right? The Jaguars had to win to ensure they won the division, and they actually had a chance for the 1 seed. So all these teams are playing their starters. They're all in playoff mode. So, I don't know if you're a week behind. I think obviously staying healthy is the key, but like Joey said, I don't love this Bills roster. I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't think there's a ton of talent, but as long as they get number 17 at quarterback, I think they got a chance. But I think he's going to have to be Superman at certain points just because I don't love the receiving core. I love the run game. I think it's spectacular. Offensive line's pretty good, but I don't think this Buffalo team is as talented as some of the ones they had in the past. They're still in the playoffs, but there's a reason why the Patriots snuck in and won this division. I think the Patriots might be better. I think they might not be the best team in their own division. So it's going to be real interesting. And then on the flip side, I don't need to say anything about the Jets. I think we've said enough about the Jets, right? They're bad. It's really bad. They need probably new players at every position going forward. So we'll move on from them and just better luck to them. We'll talk about them in the draft. We'll have a lot to say when it comes with the prospect stuff in the draft. All
right. Well, we move on with gracious nobility and with tact. We will just say 35-8 is the final error.
They didn't give us tact. Why are we being tactful? They didn't show us tact.
Yeah, if you're a season ticket holder, even Tack McKinley doesn't have that much tact. It's just unbelievable. Well, rough season for them. Lions end up getting a squeaker, right? Tied at 16. They give the ball up late in the fourth quarter. They're in the I don't know if they were in the red zone, but a bad pick, chance to lose the game. They get the ball back from the Bears, and they end up scoring with no time on the clock. Congratulations again. Every team in the division ends up with at least 9 wins and a winning record. So congratulations. Is this a game that the Bears, I think they did. They wanted to play with everything. Caleb played. If you were healthy enough to dress, they kept you out on the field because there were some seeding incidences here that the Bears need to play for. But 19-16, tough loss there for Chicago. But guess what? They're in the playoffs. Who'd have thunk it, Joey? No one thought that the Bears would have a chance to win the division, let alone make the playoffs from where they were just a year ago.
Yeah, I think Ben played these guys because it was a division game and it's an old team of his, Detroit. So I think they had a lot to do with it. I think there were some seeding things that would have happened, and then the game started, and I think some of that kind of cleared itself out with where they were going to be seated earlier. So he kind of left those guys in and let them play. But and Caleb had a record he could have broken today. There's been no Chicago quarterback to ever throw for 4,000 yards. They're the only team in the NFL to never have a 4,000-yard passer. And while he did break the record of he's now the best passer in yardage-wise in Chicago history, he did not get to the 4,000 yard. He needed 270. I think he finished with 212.
Well, didn't Bobby Douglas and Jim McMahon together come up with 3,400 yards back in the day?
Probably together, yeah. But kudos to them again. I mean, if you're told the Bears that coming into the season they finished 11-6 and be the number 3 seed or number 5 seed, whatever it is in the playoffs, they will take it. And so kudos to them. I think they're a little bit ahead of schedule. I think they hired the right guy. I think the quarterback is going to be really good. They have a running game. I think they have to get better on defense. Now, they made a couple plays on defense today, but not enough to win the football game. But so I think Chicago is an ascending football team.
Yeah. And, Brian, I watched this game. I noticed the first half it was a shutout, 14-0. And the Bears came out. They started weaving. They'd have one guy run out through the path of the other, and the backup receiver would sit and fight away and running posts and really make it very difficult for Detroit. I like the way, especially with their tight ends. Komet got hurt there a little bit. I don't know if he's going to be ready to play next week. I think that he will, but I like the way that they moved the ball around. Even though they were flat the first half, they had a chance to win this one. But what I think is great is that the Bears are believing in themselves. They're playing with house money in that first year with Ben Johnson, but they have a certain confidence that any fan of a team, they're young, they're energetic, they're looking around, they're high-fiving each other in a way that this is new and fresh for them, and obviously the city can't wait for them to play better.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how they react in the playoffs, being a division winner, so they get to host a game, which is good for them, but I think if nothing else, you want to beat the Lions just because they bullied them, right? The Lions, this was probably their most complete game of the year. I think it was week 2. Yeah. They beat up on this Bears team. I think they put 50 on them. So it was just an interesting thing. Maybe a measure of revenge, just some confidence going in. But I think they found something, not just in Caleb, but Colson Loveland's been really good. Luther Burden played really well last week. I know they lost to San Francisco, but he was huge at moments for them. I think the cool part about the Bears is it's a lot like the Lions last year. Everybody contributes when they need to, right? Sometimes it's Swift, sometimes it's Monangai, sometimes Caleb can make plays with his legs. They got a pretty good receiving core. They're developing a 2-headed monster at tight end. I know you said Komet got banged up, but this is a very intriguing team because I think they win by committee. There's truly, 11 guys on offense, 11 guys on defense. Everybody's making plays when they're out there. So I think that adds, to what they're doing. I think it's a collective issue, right? They're playing as a team. They're going to win as a team. They're going to lose as a team. And for the last couple of months, they've really learned to win as a team, especially with the young group that they have. Kudos to Ben Johnson. Obviously, this being his first head coaching gig, he's done a tremendous job. But on the flip side, who would have thought the Lions would finish as the seller in the NFC North, right? This is a team that last year was, even the last couple of years going in, Super Bowl favorites. A lot of people said, hey, this is a team that should be playing in February. And it just, they fell off a little bit, and they're going to do some soul searching in the offseason. They're going to figure out what went wrong, but they beat the Bears twice. I guess that's their solace going forward. Is they beat the division champs 2 times, and this is a very competitive division. I wouldn't be surprised if you have a different winner next year, but the Bears ended up winning it. They're a very young team. They got a lot of momentum going forward, and I'm interested to see what they're able to do in the playoffs starting next week.
11-6, Chicago Bears are in. Congratulations to them. Even though they lose this game to the Lions are 9-8. They've got some fixing to do. I know they had 14 different players on defense that they had to use in the secondary. A lot of problems there that they've got to turn around. But winning the last game certainly helps to move them in that right direction. All right, next game we're going to look at Denver. Gosh, another win for the Broncos. And the Chargers. Guys, I don't know what to say about San Diego. Well, the LA Chargers, excuse me. That's a Freudian slip. Joey, I think we both done that. They're the San Diego Chargers. Stop it. Listen, on again, off again. They were 11-6. Very impressive team. They 2 in a row that they lost, but Jim Harbaugh's done a great job. They didn't play well today, but who has played well against the Broncos? Broncos weren't good enough to really be dominating today, but boy, they are tough to beat, especially up there in Mile High Stadium. It's unbelievable how good they are.
Well, the Broncos played most of their guys, and the Chargers set most of their guys. Like Trey Lance was a starter today. Trey Lance, for the most part, he played most of the game. He had 44 attempts. That guy that showed a ton of potential coming out. I don't know where that guy is, to be honest with you. Everywhere he's been from the time he's had a chance to start in this league, he really hadn't played. He really hadn't played that well. Now he ran the ball pretty well when he had to on the ground, but Denver played guys because they, for incentives reasons and whatever else, but they didn't look great at times either, to be quite honest with you. So I'll be curious to know. But they secured over the weekend. They secured the number 1 overall seed. So everything's going to come through in the AFC through Mile High. So it'll be interesting if they can pick up the pace. Being the number 1 seed, they have a bye week coming up. All the number 1 seeds have a week off. Everybody else plays during the first week. So it'll be interesting to see how they proceed going forward. But in my opinion, it was a win. I'm not going to say it was overly impressive, especially against all the backups that the Chargers have, and they have a lot of questions themselves. Injury going into the playoffs. I'm not sure how far they can go.
In a game that, because it doesn't have seeding implications, but you win your 14th, Brian. 141 yards for Bo Nix, doesn't throw for a touchdown, but 116 yards on the ground. Obviously, the ground game, especially in the playoffs, is going to be so critical. What impresses you about Denver in terms of where they are right now, and are they playing with house money with Sean Payton?
Well, they get after the quarterback. You ask anybody that's played against these guys, they are maniacs just getting after the quarterback. And, they may not have the best linebacker group. They got a pretty good secondary, but they're able to mask a lot of things just because their pass rush is so abrasive. So if you get a penalty, right, a miscue on offense, a negative run or something like that, you put yourself in an obvious passing situation, you might have to do a max protect. You might have to keep extra guys in the block. You might have to chip a little bit more just because, they get after you, and it throws you off your game. It throws you off your rhythm. They're a good team. They play very, very well at home. It's a very, obviously the 5280, we joked about it all year. It's a very tough place to go play. And they've ensured that if you want to win, the AFC, you're going to have to come through there. And, they're a very good football team, and they understand this. And I think today was more so let's stay healthy. Let's stay in rhythm. Let's, maybe go through the motions. I mean, you're playing against the Chargers backups, right? So it's you don't expect too much resistance, but, a dominant performance nonetheless, right? Trey Lance is an NFL quarterback. These are NFL players. They're maybe not starters, but they're still guys on, they're still getting reps at practice. And, you want to stay healthy, right? But it's just the dominance has been all year. They could have played everybody. Justin Herbert could have played in this game. I could look at it score and said, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. It's just how the Broncos have played. They're a very good football team, and I've mentioned it before, from where they were a couple of years ago with the Russell Wilson debacle and not having picks and their salary cap situation, which they're still not fully over, by the way. They go to be 14-3, and they're hosting basically throughout the AFC playoffs, which is pretty impressive stuff.
Joey, before we go move on, Brian made a real interesting point. Return in terms of the four-man rush and the importance of being able to get to the quarterback with four, not have to bring a linebacker or a safety. Just from a general manager perspective, that opens things up defensively and allows you to cover guys or double people up in ways that you can't when you got to bring a fifth or even a sixth guy. Talk a little bit about the significance in terms of what you know about that and how Denver's done such an amazing job defensively all year long because they get such a good pass rush with their four.
Right. You don't have to allocate another guy to get to the passer most of the time. It gives you so much variety in the things you can do in the secondary. And on top of that, they have a kid who was the defensive player of the year last year at corner. He missed some time this year, but now with him, it's almost like when the Jets were in their heyday with Rex the coach, and we had Darrelle Revis, where he could this kid can lock down a side, and it gives you the freedom to not only double one person, but you can double two people. Yeah. Because you know that this guy on this side of the field can take out their best receiver. So now if you want to double the tight end and the number 2 receiver, you have the ability to do that. So it gives you so much flexibility when you can rush with 4 guys that you can put you can be a nickel and you can put other guys in the game just to strictly cover. You can again, you can have one guy locking down a whole side of the field like Dion used to do or Darrelle Revis would do. It just gives you so many options on defense.
Yeah, Darryl Green, Rod Woodson. There are very few people that can do it with that type of technique and skill set. So, boy, if you get one of those lockdown, guess what? Get ready to pay somebody because it's going to be one of those things. You're going to want them to stay on your team forever. Let's talk about a game that we probably don't need to talk about. Let's go Raiders and Chiefs for obvious reasons. This is a big rivalry. The history goes way back to the 1960s, but today's game, the Raiders almost blew it, Joey, by winning another game. If they'd won one more, they wouldn't get the number 1 pick, but they secure it even though they get a field goal with no time left on the clock.
Typical Raiders. The fortunate thing for them is that the Giants won earlier, and so no matter what they did today, they were going to get the number 1 pick. So had the Giants lost, they could have found a way to win this game and lose the number 1 pick to the Giants. But again, the Chiefs are so banged up and hurt, and they're a shell of what they were even 4 weeks ago. So I don't want to say kudos to anybody. I guess it's kudos to the Raiders for being so bad that you got the first pick of the draft and you got a chance to get this quarterback from Indiana, if that's the route they choose to take. But I really don't have much else to say. I think the running back had a pretty good game for the Raiders. So we'll hope he has a better second year. But they need help.
If you don't have anything good to say about somebody, don't say anything at all. We're just going to move on. Brian, Kansas City, obviously a completely different team without Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, this could be a very busy offseason for both these teams. Kind of uncharted territory for the Chiefs. They haven't had one of these kind of off seasons in a while. And we're not 100% certain. Mahomes said he's going to try to be back week 1, but we're not 100% certain when he's going to be back. So a lot of question marks for this team. Does Kelsey retire? Do you bring another quarterback? Because, obviously they're going to have to because Minshew tore his ACL also. So they won't have any of their quarterbacks ready week 1, most likely. And then if you're the Raiders, listen, I'm not going to rag on the Jets anymore. Let's not rag on the Raiders. It was a bad year all around. Offensive line help across the board. They won the Mendoza sweepstakes, good for them. But a lot of holes in this team that need to get plugged up in the offseason if they want to compete at all next year.
All right, let's move on quickly and simply. Rams 37-20. Cardinals took the lead there. I think it was in the third quarter, but Rams kind of turned it back on. They lose last week. Brian, I'll start with you here in Atlanta on a Monday night game, short week, and they come back and they get a nice win against a bad Arizona team. But this helps give them the right momentum going in the playoffs as well. They'll be on the road next week.
Yeah, I think more so than not, it was just, hey, let's flush that bad loss and let's have some good tape and let's have some good momentum going into the playoffs. Cardinals team that's really bad. They've been bad for a while. They got a lot of questions this offseason too with their quarterback situation. They need running back help, defense across the board. Their 2 best players are in their mid-30s, so they're going to. I think Clinkscales almost 40, so they got a lot of stuff to figure out on this defense if you're the Cardinals, but. This Rams team's a very good team, right? And I know they didn't win the NFC West, so they're not going to have a bye or anything like that. But this is still a team that Super Bowl aspirations, and they want to move in the right direction. I think they did this week with the win.
Calais Campbell's almost 40. He could play quarterback for the Colts, I think, if he qualifies, Joey. But Matthew Stafford, ho-hum, another 9 yards, 4 touchdowns. What a difference a week makes. A short week, by the way. Coming back from Atlanta, you pretty much lose all of Tuesday, just get some sleep. You get ready to play on Sunday. 37 points out of a team that could have scored 50 here today.
Right. I think the Cardinals have a lot of questions, like Brian said, going to the offseason. And I do think you have to start with the head coach. You got to figure out if he's the guy, if next year will be any better than it was this year. I think when you go into these situations, that's what you have to look at. If by keeping this guy, are we going to be significantly better than we were the previous year? And I don't know. I mean, they need a quarterback. I mean, we've already had this discussion. I mean, Kyler Murray probably won't be there. I think the quarterback they have is a good number 2 quarterback. So they have to figure it out. They have to figure out running back, offensive line, defense for sure. They have a lot of holes, and you need to figure out the head coach if he's the guy.
Yeah. A lot of work to do, but congratulations to the Rams. They end up qualifying for the playoffs. Even though the last couple of weeks they went from first place to just barely qualifying, but they're still in. So between them, San Francisco, and Seattle, that's a tough division. And have 3 teams qualify for the playoffs from the same one. It certainly says a lot. 38 points, 43 yards on the ground, 4 touchdowns for the Patriots. Joey, they look good and continue to do so, especially at home. Dolphins. It was 17-10 at the half, but Miami basically got on the bus, and they brought a bunch of folks in street clothes to wear the uniforms. They were done. They didn't score any more for the rest of the game. Talk a little bit more about this one.
Well, the Patriots are going to be hard out. That's just, they're a good football team. They're well-rounded on defense, offense, special teams. They do a lot of good things. Mike Vrabel, a coach, they're a well-rounded football team. So I think they're going to finish the number 2 seed in the AFC. They're going to be a tough out. There's not much to say about the Dolphins. They're lacking in a lot of areas. And again, I ask the same question. If you keep this coach, will you be better next year? And I know what my answer would be to that, but I'm not going to trigger. But I do know they hired a firm, and they also hired Troy Aikman to figure this out, and which is kind of strange to me. Especially you hire Troy Aikman when you have Dan Marino in the building. So, there's a lot of strange things happening. I could go down a whole nother road, but I won't go there today anyway. But sometimes you get what you get when you don't do things the right way.
Yeah. Well, maybe Aikman and Marino could play quarterback for Indianapolis. We're just trying to keep our options, but he's currently employed now for the Miami Dolphins, and a firm is also looking to make some moves. 14-3 is a great record, Brian. Who would have thunk it there with the Patriots? Mike Vrabel, obviously one of those guys that you have to consider for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, and I think another thing too is you got to look back at that quarterback draft class from last year with May and Daniels and Williams is looking very, very good right now. And, May was kind of, obviously he's the third guy taken. He was kind of the afterthought, but what he's able to do, I don't know if he'll win MVP this year. I think if he doesn't win it, he's probably the runner-up. Stafford might take it from him, but man, he's just been, even with the numbers, I think it was 14-19 today, 191 yards, a touchdown, kind of ho-hum, but it's consistency. He makes plays with his legs. They extend drives. I think as a team, they play really well. I think they're very well coached. Vrabel is another, awards race. Coach of the Year is it could go anywhere 3 or 4 ways right now. It's the success that you've seen from a lot of these young teams with young coaches is just kind of unprecedented. The Patriots are at the forefront of that. 14 wins doesn't win you the conference, though, which is kind of crazy to think about. So they got to, if it gets that, they're going to have to go play on the road at Denver. But this is a very good team. They got a good running game. They got a good receiving core. They got a good defense. Top to bottom, they're just very, very good. And, obviously you talk about the Dolphins. They're just far and away way better than Miami. And obviously that was apparent both times they played it. But Miami's got a huge situation at quarterback next year they have to figure out because I think they owe Tua $52 million or something like that guaranteed. So Dolphins are another team. They could have a new coach, could have a new GM. I don't know what role Marino's in or if he'll take a new role or what Aikman's doing as far as advisory, but it's just everything's kind of a mess in Miami right now. And they got a lot of holes to fill this offseason as well. A lot of question marks. And, I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins names come up, and you see Mike McDaniels as far as tomorrow with news on Black Monday for coaches.
I'll say this right quick: the cap number is so if they move on from Tua, if they cut Tua, the cap number with the acceleration that will go along with it if you're cutting will be close to $90 million.
Wow.
So 50 if they don't, right? It's 50 if they don't,
right?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. I mean, the right thing to do would be move on from him, but it's just like Denver did with Russell
Wilson.
Yep. So you got to figure that out. But the last thing I'll say about this is last year the Patriots had 14 losses.
Yeah.
This year they have 14 wins. What a turnaround.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you to go into the Miami situation, especially from a cap figure and what that does. But no, we're not going to do it. We'll just talk about congratulations for 14 wins. You end up being with the number 2 seed. The tiebreaker goes to Denver with the better record in the conference. But congratulations again. The New England Patriots, they're for real, guys. And it is a quiet arrival there. I think there are a lot of folks in the press that have been looking at other teams and organizations, giving them the press, but they've done a great job of doing everything in little pieces the right way, and that's what has impressed me. The defense is good. They're not the best defense you ever see, but they're good. Offense is good. Special teams, the way they tackle, little things like that, little small wins go a long way. So congratulations to them. Last game we're going to look at, guys, Philadelphia kind of should have been watching the scoreboard a little bit and thinking about beating the Commanders. I thought this would be one of those games that we'd see that. The final here is 24-17. I know it doesn't print up that way, but Commanders win their 5th game. Joey, we'll start with you. Philadelphia at 11-6 could have surpassed the Bears if they win this game, but they go against a team that doesn't have more than 4 wins at the beginning of it, and it ended up costing them.
Yeah, they set their guys. They set the quarterback. They set the running back. So they set guys. They were just preparing for the playoffs. So they were in. They didn't really care about seeding because in their mind, defense and run game will carry the game day in the playoffs. So that's all they cared about. So again, that's a strategy, and I can appreciate that. You want to make sure that Jalen Hurts and those guys are going into playoff healthy. So they didn't care about whether they won this game or not. Joey,
I don't know exactly, but was 12-5 the record of the Commanders last year going into the NFC Championship game, and they're 5-12. So a reversal of a different kind between what the Patriots had. But at least from a perspective, it was pretty close in terms of the exact opposite, the antithesis of what happened in New England.
Yes, there was a lot of injuries with Washington this year. The quarterback missed more than half the season with injury and re-injury. And then finally they set him down, which is probably the right thing to do. So, their record is kind of reversed, is 180 to what it was last year.
Yeah, and Brian, Josh Johnson has played for about 700 or 800 teams now and plays well enough to get a nice little win for himself and earn a spot on somebody's roster for next year because he's got some good work to show everybody. And there's never enough quarterbacks, but I don't know if there are any more jerseys that Josh could wear.
Yeah, he might have to double dip, right, at some point, just because he's been bounced around. But hey, you can never have too many good backup quarterbacks, right? Just in case of emergency. Ask the Colts, right? Ask anybody. It's just to have a guy that can come in and just kind of right the ship maybe for a week or two. It's Josh does it incredibly well, so that's why he's still employed. That's why he's still doing it. But Commanders are an interesting team. I think they're going to have to kind of answer some questions, maybe bolster up the offensive line a little bit more. It's a lot like the Ravens. You got to keep Jaden Daniels healthy. And, I don't know if I love the Deebo Samuel trade at this point too, based on how much cap space and, the production you got this year. But when you're starting quarterbacks injured, it's tough to overcome that. And they were dealing with that a lot. And I think he hit a lot of the issues they had last year. So, they get a win here, but, Philadelphia's obviously resting their guys up and they're, on to bigger and better things. And maybe, we've been talking about all year with the Eagles is at some point, are they going to flip the switch and get back to the team they were last year? And maybe they're able to do that next week when the playoffs start. They've just kind of been, ho-hum and just, hey, we're just trying to get to the dance at some point. Once we get there, we're actually going to turn it on and we can start playing our brand of football again.
Yeah, their success, obviously, with Super Bowls and victories and all that kind of stuff. Can they go in second and third gear and get through the middle portion of the season and then kind of turn it on at the right time. So it was a sit my starters win for the Commanders. Eagles didn't care, right? It didn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're going to be ready to go next week, and that's when we're ready for that. So, Joey, 2025 is over. We know we have a record there by the Jets that can only be tied and never beaten. So, congratulations to the Jets. You have created a history that is exclusive just to you. But thoughts on the season in perspective, surprises, disappointments, final thoughts here before we go.
A lot of surprises this year. I mean, a lot of teams that came out of nowhere. I mean, for a while, that was the Colts. They came out of nowhere for a while.
Yeah.
They played really well, and then they went the other way. I mean, but you're looking at the Panthers, who went to the playoffs. You're looking at the Bears, who no one expected them to be an 11-win team and win that division. You look at Seattle. Look what Seattle did. So that there were a lot of teams. I mean, and going the other way. Look at what Kansas City did. Kansas City with injury and where they finished, and Jacksonville going the other way. So that there were a lot of things that happened this year. But the teams that played the best defense again and ran the ball the best, especially going down the stretch, they were usually the most successful this year, and they have a chance to go a long way.
Brian, your thoughts here. Now that the season's over, week 18, some surprises, disappointments. What sticks out for you?
Ton of parity this year. We laughed, we cried. It was just a lot of surprises. Some of the usual suspects. It's like a good Hollywood script, right? A lot of fun, a lot of entertainment, and I think realistically now the good part. We're on to the good part, right? We're down to we're coming up on the finale. The playoffs are finally here. All the teams that qualify, congratulations to them. A lot of really good years, a lot of really great turnarounds, and I'm excited for what the next month and a half has to bring. And I think this is a wide open year, and I think any of the teams that qualify, maybe except the Panthers, but I think every team that qualified for the playoffs has a realistic chance at hoisting the Lombardi Trophy here in about a month and a half.
Well, a very interesting year, and hope that you enjoyed it as well, fans. And we want to thank you for tuning into the show. This has been 100 Yards of Football. This is our NFL wrap-up show for Week 18, the final week of the regular season. And if your team didn't make it, if you're rooting for the team that's playing, the one that's in your division, we get it. We understand that. Or if you're going to root for a different team just because you like the colors or the way their helmets look, or just because you can't stand them, and my two favorite teams are my team and the team that's playing my enemy, who knows? But it's been a good year. We've certainly enjoyed bringing you all the games and the interesting stories and backstories that are a part of what the NFL brings each and every week. We're glad to be a part of that with you. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. But for Joey Clinkscales, for Brian LeBel, thank you for watching here. We appreciate you being a part of the 100 Yards of Football Network. Thank you, and have a fantastic